the other day I met someone that the other day was maybe 2 years ago in the US, in LA. And it was someone that I met that is like that because it was a friend of it was the boyfriend of a friend of Solen. And I was like, oh my God, why am I gonna talk to this guy? I didn't feel like doing small talk. And then he comes, hey, I'm Nicolas. He put his phone there, and the first thing is a Manchester United logo in his phone. I was like, oh, you like football? He was British, by the way. Oh yeah. The moment he liked football and he knew about football, we spoke the whole night. I forgot Solen and her friend were there.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this very special edition of Across the Line with me, Chris Greatwich. And on today's episode, we have Argentinian superstar Nico Bolzico. Nico talks to us about his time growing up in Argentina, his fond memories playing in a professional game here with Kaya F.C, and his hopes and dreams for his young daughter as she embarks on a future career playing football here in this country. If you like this episode, please make sure that you subscribe to us on YouTube, like us and follow us on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and make sure you download this episode on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Without further ado, here comes this episode on your Football Friday with Nico Bolzico. Hello everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Across the Line. Today on the show we have got Argentina's finest export. I know what you're thinking, have we got Lionel Messi on the show? No, we have not. We've got the next best thing. We have got Nico Bolzico on the show. How are you, pal?
Hello, brother. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How's fatherhood treating you? You look a little bit tired, mate.
Yes, I'm not sleeping as much as I used to. I haven't woke up after 6. I think the latest I woke up in the last 9 months was 6:14 because Dylan slept a bit more than 6. So yeah, enjoying a lot, but it's a lot of work. You never told me the parenting was this hard.
No, and it doesn't get any easier, by the way. So yeah, don't think that it's going to get any easier. Now I've got 2. In fact, actually, I'm going to say to you now, the second one, so if you decide to have a second one, is worse. Second one is worse. And as you know, in my family, they progressively get worse, as the brothers roll out. So, any siblings that you have hereafter, I'm anticipating, based on my experience, it's only going to go downhill, buddy. So it's just going to get worse. I'm sorry. I'd love to say.
So we stop the plans for the second for now, then.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. But thanks for coming on. I know we wanted to get you on the show back end of last year, but we ran into some issues, obviously, with you becoming a father and whatnot. Totally understandable. But since the pandemic's hit, we've done a lot of these. A lot of people have obviously been a lot more. Have a lot of time on their hands. So we had a lot of opportunity to reach out to different people. And listen, you've gone from this guy who used to pick me up in his Ford Ranger on the way to training to this fully blown superstar now. I'll see every billboard, every restaurant that I want to eat in. So there's a lot that's happened kind of in between you, the footballer that I know, and what we now see today. But I don't really know too much about your sort of backstory. And I guess we know you as a media personality, but we don't really have the opportunity to sit down and know a little bit more about you in terms of your background. So this for me is one of the reasons why we did this podcast, was to get to know a little bit more about the character behind, in your case, the footballer and the personality, and try to show perhaps a different side of you. So that's really what we're hoping for today. With all our guests, we typically start from the beginning, mate. So we go back to the beginning. So what was it like for you growing up in Argentina as a young kid?
So in Argentina, I'm not from Buenos Aires. That's pretty much the only city that everyone knows. I'm actually from the same province as Messi. Messi's from Rosario. Rosario is the biggest city of Santa Fe, the province of Santa Fe. And I am from Esperanza. Esperanza is basically, I think today we're 42 to 43,000 people. So it's very, very small. Rosario is 1 million. So just to give you some comparison. And where I grew up, specifically in Esperanza, was in a house where my neighbor was 5 kilometers away. So I was really born in the farm. Like, in the back of my house, there were horses and calves. On the left was the warehouses with seeds to be planted, and there was my house there. So I come from, no, I don't come. I'm from still the very farmer heart of Argentina. So it's, if you wanted to put it in a way, it's more or less like, okay, in the States, like my province would be Iowa, more or less. just to give you a comparison. So that's exactly where we're coming from.
Yeah. So obviously, how does that sort of tie into your football? Because obviously, I first met you as a footballer. That's how I knew you. I know you're very passionate about football. So how did that sort of spawn your love for the game? Because obviously, if you're from such a rural area, like how did that work with the dynamic of not having anyone in the vicinity of where you lived?
So football, like in Argentina, and I also where you come from, it's really it's more like culture. It's like it's really part of absolutely every day. So I think football started with your dad. Watching football since I have memory. I don't remember the first football game I watched, but me and my dad and my brothers were watching every single game, especially of the Argentine league. In school, when you have physical education classes, it's basically you play football. You just divide the class in two, and I mean we were I think 60, so it was like 4 teams. Every break that you have at school, you play football. In the 15-20 minutes break that you have, and it's kind of like you grew up with that, and that's sport. In the afternoon you play football. It's kind of like it's part of your lifestyle. It's not like okay, let's organize. You know that we'll play, especially where I'm coming from, because it's the farm. We always, it's a small community, we always get together, and there's so much greenery. So to play football, you need 4 t-shirts to make 2 goalies and a football. That's it, and whoever is there, will play. So it's really part of the culture. And in where I'm from, in Santa Fe, so you have Esperanza, and 40 kilometers away from Esperanza is the capital of Santa Fe, that is also called Santa Fe. That's where 2 teams from the first division of Argentina are based. So it's Colón and Unión, and I was a Colón supporter. When I say supporter, the stadium is for 40,000 people. It's a big deal. Boca Juniors play there, River Plate plays there. So it's a bit dangerous in Argentina to go to the stadium because it's really intense. I mean, I remember going. I think the first time I went there was when my team was in second division. When the first time I went, I think I was 12, because before that my dad didn't want to bring me because it's too intense. I mean, I have you have police with horses controlling people, like that, level of intensity, and the fire things, all that, and at that time there were no seats. You're standing. In Europe you have seats all around the stadium. In Argentina that didn't happen till maybe 7-8 years ago. Before that, you have seats in one area that is called the VIP, and the other is, imagine some stairs made of concrete, and we all stand there. And when you all stand there, it gets so packed, and everything is jumping and moving. So like you grew up going there, and then you start feeling football, like you become such a fan. You support that team, and then if your team wins and the other one loses, you have the whole week making fun of the others, and if the opposite, you don't want to see the other because they will make fun of you. And it becomes like it's really part of your lifestyle. It's not something like, oh, let's play tennis today, and you play twice a week. No, football, it's in your life every single day growing up. And of course, every time I left Argentina when I was 23, 24, the first thing I do, and I live in different countries for work before living in the Philippines. I think it was maybe 10 different countries. And the first I do in the country is to see where I can play football. That's the first thing I do, like who plays football here and where I can play. And it's how I actually made, that's how I relate with people in the countries that I go, playing football. That's how I make friends. That's how we become friends, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's quite interesting you say that, because I want to talk a little bit about the culture, because when you sort of think about South American football, you probably think about I think there's a traditional South American style, and I don't think Argentina necessarily has that. It's a sort of more of a hybrid of a South American and European style. Like they have their flair players, they have their creative players, like you would in like a Brazil or some other parts of South America. But they also, I think, are a little more tough, a little bit more aggressive than say perhaps their Brazilian counterparts, as an example. Is that born out of there's a sort of there's a strong Italian connection, isn't there, with Argentina? Like what affected that sort of culture, do you think, that enabled it to have its own sort of unique blend of style compared to some of their South American compatriots?
Yeah, I think, well, of course, as you said, Argentina has 50%. I mean, we are made of at least 70% of immigrants, especially at the beginning of 1900. Most of them were Italian. So I think today 30 to 40% of of the people in Argentina is related to Italians in Europe. Me myself, I have an Italian passport because my great grandfather was Italian, but I don't speak Italian. I have nothing related to Italian but the passport.
Okay.
It's true what you said. You know, the South American football has a different, it's a different flavor. But it's really. I think each country had its own. Like if you look at the South American football teams, you have one Brazil. Hard to say for an Argentinian, but probably the best selection team in the history. If you adapt, if you count the World Cups, just by that measurement, they have 5 World Cups. But of course, the football is very it's a strong part of their culture, and there are 200 million people right in Brazil. So I always said like the fact that Argentina with 40 million people, we're still a rival of Brazil with one fifth of the population. It's a good accomplishment because the probability of getting great players in 200 million people within 200 million people versus 40 million people in Argentina, and then us having the 2 best players ever created in the history of the sport, Lionel Messi first and Maradona second. And I don't think Brazil have any of the top 5 because Pelé doesn't count. Anything football before 1970 doesn't count. A lot of Brazilians.
I didn't know Ronaldo was Argentinian, but anyway, that's another debate for another day, I guess.
Exactly. I kind of agree. Ronaldo should be there, but not over Messi or Maradona. But going back to your question, the football in South America, it's tough. It's very physical, especially in Argentina. You have countries like Argentina, like Uruguay, Chile, Colombia, that I think there's not that much talent that is in Brazil, because Brazil have a lot of talented players, a lot of players with technique, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Romario, Bebeto, it's so many. While the other countries have, of course, they have talented players, but they are more known for like a harsh, midfielder like Mascherano in Argentina, or very strong defense, like today the Uruguayan defender like Godin, or any of the defenders that you can think on South America. They all come from this country because I think they kind of complement a bit of the lack of talent with the roughness. Even you play with me, my talent is very limited, almost non-existent, but I complement it with attitude and a hard playing, right? Like more physical. So I think I wouldn't know how to link that with the European roots, because you have so much diversity in the football of Europe, but I think it's, if you have to choose one country from Europe that is more alike, like South America, all and a lot of score by a counterattack, right? So that's more or less what I would say. Like if you have to look at the country that is more similar to except for Brazil, to the other countries, would be Italy. I think Brazil is more, it kind of has its unique way of playing football. It's well known, the jogo bonito they call it. So I think Brazil, you can kind of have it separated, and you have the rest of the countries, and the rest of the countries I find it more linked to the Italian way of playing.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I mean, even there you talked about Maradona. I mean, I don't like to admit it, but I'm a fraction older than you. Fraction. But only by a couple of days. But my earliest memory is of Italia 90. So that would have made, I was 6, nearly 7, as you would have been the same age. And I could just remember, my dad would talk about this Argentinian guy, but he was almost like a myth, because in those days, football wasn't as heavily televised as it is now. So you'd only really get to see these players on, every World Cup, or, maybe the odd European Cup final or whatever. It wasn't that sort of 24 hours non-stop news cycles or sports shows that you can see these guys on a regular basis. So there was this real excitement when I got to see this guy. And I can remember, I can still see myself in front of the television watching them get beat by Cameroon in the first game and thinking,
1-0.
What's my dad talking about? This guy, I can see him getting kicked. Him and is it Claudio Caniggia? I remember him getting beat up really bad in that game. And after that game, I was like, well, world champions 4 years ago, but they couldn't even beat this, lowly African team. What were some of your earliest memories? I'd imagine, that World Cup is probably one that would stand out for you.
So I think, it's a bit aligned with you, right? I think that maybe one of the the first memory I have with football, and I think it's because World Cups are so important in Argentina. Whenever there is a World Cup, the efficiency of the country goes down. Like people work less, especially because it depends. You don't know where the World Cup is going to be playing, and I think when it's in Europe, we are 6 hours behind. So normally the games are at 3 p.m., 2 p.m., 4 p.m., or sometimes at 11 a.m. So when there is a World Cup game, people really watch it. If it is Argentina, of course, it's declare a national holiday for sure.
Yeah.
But even if it's not Argentina, World Cup are so important and so expected that you'd realize what happened during that month so well, because everything is so special, right? Like, everyone takes holidays basically when there's a World Cup. But even if you don't take holidays and you're working, your bosses are also watching the game. The Greece would start to give the not Argentinian game, any game to be score. That's how important it was. Like, we're gonna give a score, just come to church. And I remember the World Cup in the 1990. I remember especially the semi-final where we eliminated Italy with Goicoechea in penalties. I think those moments, for some reason, I remember where I was in the living room with my brothers, and then what you do when you play Argentina, you just don't watch with your family. You have at least 50 people over, or you go to another place that is 50 people. So it's kind of like you're sort of in the stadium. Okay, one second.
Go.
Sorry.
That's okay. We often get people distracted, during the middle of these interviews. We've never had someone have to sign anything during them, but
it's okay.
I guess these are the problems that you have when you're running your own company, right?
This is my home office.
Home office, yeah, no, I get it, no problem. And we lost on penalties, so I remember watching that and going to bed crying and being like, oh my gosh, this is a disaster. And obviously not making a World Cup final was just, in my house, was an absolute nightmare. But I mean, your tears came a few days later, right, when you were unable to beat the West Germans. I mean, I'm sure you probably remember that game too.
I remember that game pretty well, and we don't have very good story with Germany in the World Cups, unfortunately. Since that time, I think Germany eliminated. 1990 was Germany. They eliminated us in 2000. It was two more times. 2006, they eliminated in the final of 2014, and they eliminated in the quarterfinals of 2014. So they eliminated 3 more times after that one.
Yeah, I mean, England's not much better. We get beat by the Germans all the time too. So yeah, I think England's record's probably a lot worse, to be honest with you. But no, it's interesting because now it's completely changed, and I sort of want to bring you towards the more sort of recent times, because I know, like you said, I know you've been to many different countries, many different jobs. I mean, we talked about it before. We both worked in recruitment in a previous life or in that sector. So I actually don't know this story. Like, I don't know how you ended up here in the Philippines. Like, how did you end up? Obviously, I know you moved from country to country, but how did you end up here on this island?
So basically, my previous job, I was being sent to different countries for 4 to 6 months, and we were building sort of country reports. So I was for different magazines or newspapers, and they normally send a team of 3 people. And then I was living most of my career there was in Africa, the Middle East, the Caribbean, and then they said, okay, you will start in the Philippines now. And it was already my 6th year that I was traveling nonstop like that. So at the beginning it's fun, but after 6 years, you really you don't know where. You don't have a postal code. Like, if you want to send me a letter, you don't know where to send me a letter. So when I came to the Philippines, I was already kind of done with it, and then I really, fell in love with the Philippines really, really fast. After 2 months, I was thinking, this can be the place where I can settle, because I definitely didn't want to go back to Argentina. It's very hard to leave Argentina once you leave. It's hard because it's so far, but once you get used to leave and you're outside, you're like, okay, let's try to extend as much as possible before going back. And I decided to start LM10. My dad came here to visit, because I asked my dad, what do you think if I live here? So he came here with my mom, visit, see if it was things to be done from the business perspective, more from agriculture. And the rest is history. I stayed. I decided to stay. I quit my job. And I met my wife, and And after I met my wife, the rest is
yeah, very well documented. After you met your wife, we all know how that went. But like you said, one of the first things you did obviously was get involved with football. And I mean, I first met you in 2013, and by that time you were already involved with Kaya, which is obviously the club that I've been involved with for a number of years now. How did you end up in Kaya? How did you end up playing on that team?
Okay, so it was my at that time girlfriend who brought me to, because I was asking football, and then she introduced me to, at that point was Santi and Aneta, and Santi said, okay, come and do trials in Polo Club by Wednesday. I don't remember which day it was. So I go there. The first person I meet is Cutillas. I don't know if you remember.
Cutillas. Yeah, I remember Cuto. Yeah.
So Cuto, speaking Spanish. So it's like, okay, this is perfect. Like, I didn't know how serious this was, right?
Right. What was your perception of it? Like, what did you think you were getting yourself into? Did you think you were just getting into like a recreational team, or did you know that this was something that was going to be like semi-professional?
No, I never thought professional. I never wanted I never played professional in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the best of my group of friends, right? I'm like, imagine. So I always maintain myself quite fit. So I always say like, okay, I want to play some, competitive, right? I wanted to be able to run. I don't want to play like, the Sunday league, but of course not professionally. And then I arrived, and then Kuto was there, and I said, "Whoa, hi, I'm Nico." And he said, "Okay, is he the coach? Okay, he's a coach." That was already a big thing. Like, he's a coach.
Big upgrade.
It's like, so I was asking him, what else do you do? No, I'm the coach. What do you mean you're the coach? Yeah, I just coach. This is my job. Oh shit, this is a real coach then. I thought, like how people coach teams for fun. In Argentina, it happens all the time. You have like tournaments, and this is a coach, but the coach is one of the friends. I said, okay, so he's the coach. And then so okay, let's play. And it was at the very beginning, so the season was not even starting. So we were like playing small games in Polo Club in the baseball pitch. So I was playing, and I was like, and because it's a small pitch, you cannot really, the the 11 side players in small pitch, you cannot see how good they are, right? Like when you play with someone in a big pitch, and there you see, okay, this is different. But when it's a small pitch, less spaces, I was running and crashing everyone, and it's like, okay, it's like, of course, this is super high level, but I think it was okay. And then he said, okay, when do I start? No, what do you mean, when do you start? You have to do the trial. What do you mean trial? This is oh yeah, you have to do a trial. I said, what do you mean trial? I said, yeah, the next trial is this. I said, so I'm in trial for a team. Yes, okay. So I started doing the trial, and then the next time we play in UMAC, and then it was an assistant coach, and there were, the beeps, and I was like, this is pretty professional. And then we played for the first time in the big pitch in UMAC. And then what I saw, Anton, Nate was a time there, Ali. So then you see these guys really play. It's like,
yeah, national team players.
Yeah, exactly. But because UMAC was never so even, the pitch. You remember UMAC, right? Mm-hmm. Still sometimes you think, okay, I think because it's not like a super perfect pitch where the best players will be highlighted even more. So okay, I mean, and of course it was training. Nobody was playing 100% except for me, that I was giving it all. And then this trial, and then we start becoming friends. So we start talking, and then they explain this is first division. And I said, the first thing I said, I went to the coach and I say, please let me pay, and please let me play. I don't need to get paid. I just want to play. So the moment I want to say, okay, I will not cost money to the team. It's just, I think that was the thing. And then I think the coach saw that I was good for the group, because I was, I'm a pretty funny guy and pretty sociable guy, right? So I was making everyone laugh. So I think I became, part of the team already. And I say, I mean, it would have been sad to kick me out of the team, and then I just stay and then start playing.
So what year was this?
So this is 2011. I arrived in the Philippines May 2011, and I think the league started. If I don't remember, August.
Yeah, it was going to be. I would say September, maybe because I remember coming. The first time I met you or saw you was I came back that year for the LA Galaxy game, which would have been December, and you were playing on that Kaya team. So I think you got beat by Global in the Cup. So that was the first time I met you, right? So that would have been your first season. You're right. Yeah. So sort of maybe August, September 2011, something like that would have been your first season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And what did you think? What did you think of the level? Because that was really the start of when people started to come then from South America, from Europe, from different parts of the world, and actually converge on the Philippines to try to see it as a professional outlet for them.
So I think I got it right before it became super professional. So I think, when you came in and then when we started playing together, that was already way better. I think that was at that time when you guys were, I think you beat Vietnam in the Suzuki Cup that year.
Mm-hmm. 2010, yeah.
When the year before, so still when football was timing and of course, both of the young husbands, everyone was starting to come back. This Angel, Carly, all the Spaniards also were coming. So that's what we was starting. So the level was great. I think it's for me. I never had the talent to play, in the sense of, like, of course, talent-wise, it was a big gap between the way I play and whoever else was playing in the league. And I think I was trying to complement or to fill that gap with extra, physical and to be super fit and trying to run as much as possible and tackle as much as possible. So, but I always felt thankful and lucky to be able to share that, because I think I will never thought that the best year of the best football memories of my life coming from Argentina would have been in the Philippines. And I think, the Kaya time especially were great memories. And I think I always treasure those moments, and I always remember. And I think it's my friends, they still cannot believe that I play first division. And actually this is the very funny thing. There is a book that it comes every year in Argentina with all the Argentinians playing abroad, right? So you open the book and you have Spain, you have Lionel Messi, all of them, you have it, and then Philippines, and it was my name there.
No way.
So when that happened, I showed it to all my friends, and I said, guys, I cannot play with you anymore when I go back to Argentina, because I'm a professional. So, I'm afraid to get injured playing, because we normally play 5-a-side, and I only play 11-a-side professional, so I cannot play it. This is the book. And of course, my friends were laughing like hell, because literally they couldn't believe I was playing first division here, because I'm not the best out of my friends. But I'm the most fit, or the fittest. I don't know how to say.
And the book doesn't lie. If you're on the same book as Lionel Messi, that's as good as being
exactly. I play first division. I'm a professional player. I cannot.
You can't change that. No, I agree. Like, I mean, obviously, like I looked at you. I mean, I think my first sort of 2 or 3 months, I ended up going from player to coach. And I remember speaking to management and being like, listen, I know this guy works and he's a farmer, really, and he's not the best player, but we need to keep him around, because exactly that, like, you had this infectious personality. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. This is before Nico the celebrity. You were just this funny Argentinian guy who, he looked good in a tight uniform. You didn't have so many grey hairs then. And but every training session, it was 100%. Like, sometimes it will be a problem, because there'll be times when you were going and like you'd be taking people out, and people would be like, well, it's just a rondo, or it's just a warm up, and you're going then full steam. But like, for me and how I like to do training, like, I always thought I was a good trainer, and I wanted to make sure that people were 100% in training, because I think if you train hard in practice every day, the game's going to be easy on the Saturday or whenever you played. So I really liked that. I really admired that about you. And I think, especially when you factor in, you were different to some of the other guys, because you were getting up at like 4 a.m, doing 6 a.m. training, and then going to do a full shift at work. Thinking back, that's ridiculous. Like, how did you manage to maintain that? But like you said, we had a really good team, like, not just in terms of players, but really good camaraderie, really good players, like good people. And it was just a fun time to be around the game at that time. What were some of your sort of personal highlights in that period, that sort of 2011, 2012 season when you were playing in the UFL?
So I think the treasure that I take from it is people, friendship like you or Antonio, people like, because I think if you think today, what are the friends that I made in the Philippines, football play a key role. Second is to have some of my goals in YouTube, so I can put YouTube and show my goals to every single person talking about football. That's also, so being televised was actually something that I always, every time I talk about football. Oh yeah, by the way, I used to play football. Let me Google Nico Kaya Green Archers goal. And this is my goal that I scored.
Was that the only goal? Was that the only goal that's on?
I scored two. I scored against Air Force, a header, and I scored against Green Archers, a goal that I started in my own area, and I went through the whole pitch and pitched it with my left from outside the box.
Okay, listen, you don't have to lie. You know this is being recorded, right? You don't have to lie saying that you scored a goal with your left foot. I've seen your left foot, right? There's absolutely you sending me this the truth, because I'm going to go and put this into YouTube later.
Put Green Archers Kaya Nico Bolzico goal, and this is summary of the game. I think it's in the minute 2 or 3 is when my goal is. It's after Eddie Magliari missed a shot.
That sounds feasible. That bit sounds feasible. The left foot shot that you just spoken about does not sound believable.
So okay, I never talked about that goal actually, so it's gonna be the first time. So
okay,
I started from my own box, and I ran pretty much straight, and I go through 2 to 3 players, all straight, and I reach the ball, the other box. When I'm in the other box, I miss it in UMAX, so the ball is not like it's pretty bouncy, right? So when I'm in the other box, I'm completely exhausted. And I see I think it was Anton, because I was playing left right back, so Anton was the right back, so he ran all the way. So I tried to cross it. And it was Nate.
Okay, that sounds a bit more believable.
And then he went over the keeper, and it was an amazing goal. I think I think it was Nate, because we celebrated like this with Nate after like a baby, because Nate, his brother just had a baby. So yeah, it was Nate. And I scored that goal. And the game before, I have scored a header against Air Force, and the game after we played against Army, and I almost got a header, and then I got a red card, and from there my career started going down.
Okay, I believe those other ones. I can believe you scored a header against Air Force. That's believable. I can believe you got a red card. You talking like you're Gabriel Batistuta, I'm not. That's not believable. So I'm gonna Google that later and just verify that story, because it doesn't sound believable to me.
I'm gonna see a link so you don't forget to Google it.
Please, I would love to see the link. We'll put it in the show notes and make sure that everyone sees that. Just to let you know,
it's not a televised. It was not televised. It was someone recording, right? So it's not that good quality.
I know, or maybe that sounds like something that you might edit on iMovie. That would be probably more believable. I mean, maybe you had some professional people do it, but I'll have to check it out for myself, because it doesn't sound true. But I mean, that time though was very different, because I mean, listen, you've been, obviously you didn't play so much thereafter. You kind of dabbled and went back and forth, did the weekend football league stuff, but you dabbled with football. That was the really, I would consider the pinnacle, even though I wasn't here. I didn't come until 2013, but even I remember going to watch, I was watching those games on YouTube or the highlights on Facebook at UMAC. And like I said, it was televised. There were 3,000-4,000 people in the stands. And then obviously when we progressed to the Bikini Hill venue, those games were packed. There was real excitement. We would go down there and just watch a game on a Tuesday or a Thursday night. It didn't matter who it was. We would just go watch, because we'd all hang out there. There was a great atmosphere, I know this is not necessarily as involved with it, but what do you think about sort of the difference between those days and what we find ourselves in now? I mean, you've been involved with the game. Like, what are some of the things that you've identified as being reasons as to why things have sort of had a downward trajectory in the last few years?
So as I said, when I was playing, and I was actually playing Kaya in 2011, I think it was the turning point where things became more professional. When you came, with you and all that, it became much more professional, better players, more players coming from abroad, and it's what you said. You have people coming to the stadiums. It were fan base, so things were like, for me in my head, I was like, I will tell my kids in 20 years, when football is huge in the Philippines, that I was playing the last year before this really shoot up. So I stay involved actually with you in Kaya, mostly without playing much, but just being part of it, because it's such an amazing. I mean, for me, football is not only amazing to play because it's a workout, but also it's amazing because it's a team. It's a team sport that makes you understand how important it is to play to support each other, to play with friends and all that. But it's also the people that comes to watch and everything around football. It's so beautiful, and I think it's such a, and I think the Philippines had such a potential to be a football country more than a basketball country, right? But to be honest, I don't know what happened. Because after it didn't explode as I expected. I don't know. I mean, I have this discussion many times, and I don't have that much information on what was going on. But I think when I look at Argentina or any other country, the football are the fans, right? Fans is what football is about. And you can see today, when you play last night the Champions League game, when you see Barcelona playing with no fans, it's like watching a practice game. I mean, there's a lot of misery, right? So, and I think in the Philippines, the fan base was growing and growing and growing and growing, and more people was getting involved, and suddenly it slowed down at one point, and then after 2014 and 15, I was less involved, unless I was just staying in touch with you guys, but not much with the teams more than nomads or the other teams that are not that much. They are playing the Alaska Cup or things like that. So I really don't know. I mean, at one point I thought maybe it was because in Argentina, if you look at it, the fan base comes from geographical locations, right? So I support my team in first division because they're from my province, and everyone in the city is either from Colón or Unión, but because we're all from there, and it's like super strong attachment, and it's where you come from. And in Argentina, all the teams are distributed per provinces, and most of them are in Buenos Aires, but in Buenos Aires it's huge, so you have different neighborhoods. So each club have a fan base from those particular places. So one point I was thinking, okay, so maybe because it did happen, right? The teams were to geographical areas after, but at the same time, you needed sponsors, because without sponsors, how can a team pay 22 people to fly to Davao and stay over to Davao? So I don't know what was the chicken and the egg story there, but it was something that was missing, and I still believe, after the pandemic for sure, I still believe there is so much to do, and there's so many people like you who can make a big difference in football. But I think we should get support from the bigger guys. There is people willing to do it. There are people willing to work for it and that can implement. But I don't know if we may need to work on getting companies more involved, because you have a lot of companies like PLDT or Globe, all of them. They support basketball teams, volleyball teams, but only a few support football teams, right? I mean, if they start supporting more, like, okay, this is my football team, because at the end of the day, in the league you have Meralco was a team, so each of the LBC was Kaya. So I think maybe that part should continue, or they should get more involved, or I'm not 100% sure, but I do think there is still a big opportunity, because especially, you see it in the academy, right? How many kids and parents and all that, they want to bring kids to play football, and how amazing is the environment. When I see you in the academy, when I go in McKinley Hill Village, in McKinley Hill Stadium, when I enter there, you see the kids playing, that is awesome. You see the parents around in a super nice environment, everyone cheering. I see, I think last time I saw you there, one of the teams that were 8 or 9 years old, the kids, they score a goal, and when they score a goal and they all coming together and hug each other, and that type of bonding that you don't generate outside of a football pitch. I still think that there is a massive opportunity for football in the Philippines, and it's a matter of maybe everyone getting together and align and say, okay, this is this is a bigger objective, this is a bigger vision, is to develop football in the Philippines. Why? Because we want football to include more kids from different neighborhoods that might be able not to afford it, and they can start playing, and they can see football sometimes also as hope. So I think there is a bigger picture that should see in football, and it's a matter of all the different parties to get aligned and say, okay, you know what, we're gonna get together. We have a clear objective for the Philippines football, and let's all pull the same rope. And I think that's maybe what, I don't know if I was not really involved in that part, but I think it's, people is here, to do this.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's quite interesting that you mentioned about growing up in Argentina and like your experience as a young kid. Like mine was similar. We didn't have bleachers or seats. We stood on we call it terraces, the same thing. So the concrete steps basically, and you'd all go together, and you can't recreate that atmosphere in any other setting. Football, really, maybe a music concert, maybe that's the only other one. But even a music concert, there isn't that sense of community. You're there to see an artist or you're there to see a performer, but like you said, with football, you're with people who are from your town, and often you go with family members, and that bond and that community is forged. And the manifestation of that is the guys that are playing on the pitch. And I think that obviously, because exactly as you said, the geographical makeup makes it quite difficult. So then we have to try to find a different way. One of the things that someone was talking to me about the other day was he was saying about like in America, like a lot of fans will follow the player. And nothing illustrates that more than the recent basketball championships. I've never seen so many LA Lakers fans in all my life, right? But it's not the Lakers, it's LeBron. So they all follow LeBron, right? Or they hate LeBron, whatever it is. But that's really where the affinity comes from, is from the player. And we had an opportunity with that, I think, with our group when we all came in. There was a lot of big personalities, and you could have followed the personalities. But the fan experience just wasn't great. McKinley Hill was good. I thought McKinley Hill as a fan experience was pretty good. But once we started to go to Rizal, it's quite far. It's a little bit, you're not going to take your wife and kid to Rizal, unless you've got a couple of bodyguards. It's certainly not going to park up and walk to the venue, are you? So I think that's where we perhaps missed a trick with that. And it's going to take a lot of work to try to cultivate that, to re-engage those people who have probably been burnt before. And it's only that then is when those companies are going to get back involved again. If they see packed stadia, if they're going to see people in the crowd, they're going to see kids going to games. Of course, companies are going to get involved. More than anyone, people will get involved if people see that there's a little bit of traction there. So, no, I totally agree. I would love to see a better fan experience. And you sort of touched upon it there. I mean, we're both parents now, and I want to see that landscape change for my kids. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to see them have the opportunity to play in a more progressive football environment, because like you said, we know what it's like. We've seen what it's like when it's really passionate and when it's really involved with the community. I just want to try to recreate that here. So that brings me on to my next question. Now, you've got a daughter, you're a father now. Is she going to be a footballer? Do you think? Would you like to see her play the sport?
So I'm going to confess. If you asked me this question maybe 10 years ago, I would say no, football only for boys. My girl will play something else. Today, especially in the Philippines, when I see the academies and you see the girls playing, it's amazing. It's amazing. And then again, they say like 100% yes is the answer. She will play football. I mean, if she wants, I won't force her to play, but I'm gonna take her there maybe 10 times until she says yes. But you see how the like the girls play was. I was watching a lot of the when we played the 7-side in McKinley Hill Stadium. Before that, you have the girls playing and all that. So I was watching the girls, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And I definitely want my daughter to come and play, not only just because of the sport and all that, but it's what you said, the experience, the being part of a team, the bonding, the passion, and and then I saw one girl scoring, and she went running and hugged the dad, and that was it. I'm sold. So my daughter is gonna play football.
Like this, you like this on the sideline,
and I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna be like that, waiting for her to score. So yeah, definitely. I think it would be great for her also to be able to have that, to have be that sense of belonging, right? You belong. It's what you said. In basketball, they follow the players. In football, you don't. I mean, in Argentina, they say you can change everything in your life except for your football club, right? So in Argentina, I support one club, and it doesn't matter the player. It's the club who you support, right? So it's like it's a sense of belonging, and of course, like you, I hope and I always said that I'm always willing to contribute to help for the development of football, because I want my daughter to experience it, because it's great. And it would be really sad if there's no opportunity for her to be able to play football.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. And I think whenever she's of the right age, how old is she now?
She was January 1, so she's gonna be 10 months in 10 days.
Is she walking yet?
No.
So yeah, but my two boys started walking. The girls normally walk a little bit earlier. But my two boys started walking at about 13 months. And with my eldest, with Nico, maybe that's a story for later on. But with Nico, he was in at about 18 months. We put him in, and going back to your story about maybe 10 times, I used to force him to go. And the first year, it was like, oh my gosh, he hates it. And if I can't convince my own kid to go to my own academy, I'm in trouble. Right? So basically, my advice to you is, maybe between 18 months to 2 years, you should maybe start to give it a chance to go. But it's a really good book, actually. You should read it. It's called Football Starts at Home by a guy called Tom Bayer. And it's about how a lot of these superstar players, unfortunately, they talk a lot about Brazilians in it, but a lot of them start with, they just leave balls around their house as kids. So there's just balls, it doesn't have to be a soccer ball. It could be a tennis ball. It could be, and they just learn to kick. They learn to throw it. They learn to, like roll it with the sole of their foot, whatever. And then they just, that's how they learn. I mean, maybe your wife's a bit more particular about the house looks. I've got broken stuff all over my house. So that's just how it is with me.
By the way, I saw Nico playing and he's insanely good, eh?
He's pretty good. Yeah, he's all right. Yeah.
Good, eh?
Yeah, he's all right.
Maybe the name.
Yeah, he's right. Maybe it is the name. But look, I want to be mindful of your time. I know you got to shoot off and pick up your daughters. There's a couple more things I want to ask you, which is a lot of young kids actually listen to the show, and a lot of the people that we've had on have obviously been professional players, former professionals, coaches. But you're completely different. You're completely different to the type of individual that we've had on this show. I mean, listen, you'll say you play professionally, but there we go. You already told us that, although you're in the book, maybe not as professional as some of the other guys. To be honest with you, I don't really consider myself professional either. But when a lot of these kids are growing up, they look at football as an outlet, as an opportunity for not just learning about football per se, but about learning lots of other different life skills that they can utilize in school, in their relationships, in business or work, whenever they decide to pursue their careers. Like, what are some of the key things that you think that you learned through football that have enabled you to be successful in your professional life, in your celebrity life, modeling life, whatever life you lead these days?
I think football is much more than just a sport. First, as your personality when you play football, and the first thing you need to understand when you play football, it's a team sport. I mean, there's only one Lionel Messi that can make it different by himself, but you play with another 10 players, and it's about how you play as a unit, not as a one block, not as a one player, right? So I think that collaboration in between, to support your teammates. If he goes up, you cover him, or that communication that you need to have a lot. So I think it's about supporting your teammates, communicating, that I think is so important. Like something that I learned when, especially here in the Philippines, is talking in the field. Communicating is so key in the field, and that applies in life, right? Communicating is key for your marriage, for your job, for your friendship, for everything. So communicating is so important. Also from a physical perspective, I think football is the only workout that I don't hate. I hate to work out. I work out almost.
Really? Is that true? I never knew that. I never knew that.
I hate to work out. I work out pretty much every day. I run and I do push-ups and I do, I'm doing, these videos workout and all that. But do I enjoy it? No. I do it because I know I'm going to be healthier and I'm going to feel better after and I'm going to have a better day. And it's because I'm going to, I want to be able to keep, playing football till I'm 60 if ever. And you do work out because you want to, I want to be able to play with Tilan till I'm 80 if ever. But do I enjoy running or doing push-ups? No, I completely hate it. But 100%. Do I enjoy playing football? I love it. It's not a workout for me, but it's the same result as a workout. So every time you play football, it's such a good workout in the sense that you're like sprinting. It's a lot of sprinting, stopping. It's really good for your body, of course. There may be some injuries, but you need to be careful with that. But it's really physical. It's amazing because you're having fun and you're doing something that you have to do for your health, and you're enjoying it, right? So that's two. And I think also like a bit of loyalty, right? In football, that we see that less today in football as it is, with all this social media and the teams today and players going back and forth and it's big contracts and, a lot of, all this money. I mean, I remember my dad telling me stories about, like, I think there's this, what is this movie? It's no, this series in Netflix about football, about the Scottish guys that went to England to play when football was not professional yet.
Yeah, the English game.
The English game. Okay, so that's an amazing movie to watch. Actually,
very good.
We love football, but I think it's that sense of loyalty that maybe we don't see now with the big stars. That changed a little bit, but that sense of loyalty of belonging to somewhere, to a place, it's also something that you learn through a sport like football. And me, I also see football as a way of sharing, right? So some of the best memories I have with my family, especially with my dad, my brothers, and my friends, is because of football. I do remember watching games together, the World Cup. I do remember going to the stadium. Or every time I go back to Argentina, we have a full day with all my childhood friends where we do a barbecue, we play football, we drink, we play football again. And it's like football is always part of what you're doing and makes your day even better, right? So it's kind of like a way of making memories better, right? So I have a lot of good conversation with my dad, and it's on my way going to the stadium, or during the halftime, or waiting there, or like it's really a bonding moment that you get. That I think it's something that you don't get much. And also like when I meet someone, like like a way of when I the other day I met someone that the other day was maybe 2 years ago. In the US, in LA, and it was someone that I met that is like that because it was a friend of it was the boyfriend of a friend of Solen, and I was like, oh my god, why I'm gonna talk to this guy? I didn't feel like doing small talk, and then he comes, hey, I'm Nicola. He put his phone there, and the first thing is a Manchester United logo in his phone. I was like, oh, you like football? He was British, by the way. Oh yeah. The moment he liked football and he knew about football, we spoke the whole night. I forgot Solen and her friend were there. We were like completely going off about like it's something that you enjoy so much, and then indirectly you become close to that person. It's because you're sharing that passion. That passion, I think it's a word that is very strong. That when you love the game so much, I mean, regardless of how you played, the kick you played, but also like if you enjoy it and if you see it as more as a sport, I mean, it's a way to getting close to anyone so easily. That's why I think when you meet with someone that likes football, is so much easier for me, because I love it so much to get closer. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, I think football it's really like it's more than a sport. It helps you with education, it helps you with your personality, it helps you with friendship, it helps you with memories, it helps you with family. I think it's something that it's great. And in Argentina, football is also a way of giving hope to people. Like there's a lot of, especially the some neighborhoods that there's a lot of poverty in Argentina, and when there is people trying to help there, they do it through football, because football is always a game of people get hope, right? So maybe that kid that will start playing football when he's young, he won't be a professional football player and won't make millions, but because of football, he will end up going to school, right? So it's football what brought him. It's football what made him grow as a person, and thanks to football, he goes to school and then university and get an education. But before football, you would never got that kid from the street, right? So it really goes beyond. And maybe it's because I love football. I don't know how it's with other sports, with rugby. I don't know, to be honest. But I do know how it's with football, and I think it's something that I see such a good match for the sport in the Philippines. And that's why I'm always super supportive when anything that I have to do with football to support it and to try to push it and being able, because I think it can make a difference in the society beyond just being a sport, beyond the sponsor, beyond anything else. But it can, like another great example, and it's a priest from Argentina. Remember that the two kids from the priest from Argentina I sent to the academy?
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
So he had he has a football team in Malabon, and it's basically kids. And he's an Argentinian priest that now moved to Canada, unfortunately. But he created this team where what he does is he have a team, and the kids that come and play, they get food that day, and then of course through donations they get clothes and things like that. But what he was telling me is, I got when I started this, the kids have no hope. They have absolutely, like they were just kids on the street, right? And now when you see them, they come on time. They have to be there on time. They have to practice. They have discipline. They have friends. They have family. They call them family. They play games against other teams, so they have a belonging to one team. And a lot of them started, going to school. And then when you see that someone that can sponsor, I was, when I help, you are gonna help them because you see there is a way. Like it's not like, sometimes when you want to donate something, I wanna give the money somewhere. Where does my money gonna go? Like, is it gonna be? But when you see that is so much progress, of course you want to help. Yeah. And what is the glue, the link of it? It's playing football. These kids love to go there and play football. So everything they do is because they love the sport, and the sport is giving them so much more. A lot of them are already going to school. I think it started maybe 7 years ago. So I was introduced to him by another Argentinian friend, Federico Krause, and it's crazy. And it's a small community in Malabon. They play in La Salle, in Malabon, La Salle. So if you can replicate that to the country, how much can you help?
Yeah,
so much.
I totally agree with you, mate. Like the more I've got along this journey as a player and then as a coach, like really the most important thing I think are exactly those two things: the relationships that you build along the way and the memories that you create through those relationships. They're the two things you really remember. I mean, yeah, I do remember some games. I do remember like the lifting of the trophies, but exactly what you said, the best memories that I have are the train journeys going to the games, or after a good victory, like you and your friends, you get into the back of your dad's car and you're aware, the car's all dirty, but you don't care, or you're wet or you're cold. It doesn't matter because you're together, and that's something that I hope that coaches that listen to this, or kids that are playing, obviously not playing right now, but who play the sport, just understand that. And it goes so quickly. It does go so quickly. And you just got to enjoy those moments as best you can. So if you're a parent of a kid, that's on this journey now, just try to support them and cherish those moments and try not to miss them. Because I think everyone's so busy trying to do the next thing, or focus on the next game, or focus on their work, or be on their phone, or whatever. I think they're missing those moments. And exactly what you said. The best moments I had growing up were those. It was linked to football. It might not necessarily actually be the football, but it's the other stuff that are around it that I totally agree with.
Football is the excuse, right?
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Nothing else to happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the excuse is to go and play that when you took that train. Okay, the excuse to go to that place is to go and play football. Of course, you love football, but the whole journey before and after the game, it's also part of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, I've really enjoyed. I could talk with you for hours, as you know, and today's excuse was I get to speak to you because I want to talk about football. But really, the excuse is I just wanted to hang out with you for an hour because we don't get to do that very often because we're both busy parents now. But I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. You're a great teammate when we play together, but you're a good friend. I wish I could see you a lot more, but I really appreciate you coming on the show and giving your insights onto Argentinian football, your personal, professional career, and everything else beyond that. So thank you very much, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Okay, brother. Thank you so much. And I will tell you something I never told you, but I want to thank you for everything you're doing for football. I think we need more people like you. I never seen someone that professional and disciplined, and whatever, something that you have that maybe not necessarily a lot of people might appreciate, but it's like you have no BS. You come and you say what it is, how it is, and you cut through, and there's no BS. And sometimes people get shocked with that, but in the long term, that's the people you need involved in order for this thing to happen. And I think that's something that I really appreciate about you a lot. And I do appreciate everything you're doing for the sport. And please don't stop doing it. And I will give you officially my full support in whatever you need towards the sport. I'll do it today publicly so you can knock my door. You, not your brother. You.
Just me.
Yeah.
Me. I appreciate it.
Or whatever. You have my full support, and I will back you up in anything you will do for the sport in the country.
That's a rigged endorsement. I appreciate that, pal. Thank you very much. So, listen, guys. If you like our content, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. But Nico Bolzico, thank you so much for joining us on this Football Friday. We really appreciate it.